Have you ever found yourself in the eye of a storm, quiet, calm, focused, while the world around you seemed to spiral into chaos? What if I told you that this storm isn't just external, but an internal battle where your silence becomes your strongest weapon? The problem many face in relationships, especially those tangled in emotional drama, is the misconception that speaking up, chasing or explaining endlessly is the path to healing or control. But what if all that noise actually weakens you, and the real power lies in staying silent? What if silence isn't surrender, but a radical act of self-respect and growth? Here's the truth few talk about. While you're healing in quiet strength, she's panicking, not because she's moved on, but because she's losing the control she once had over your world. This dynamic, though intense, is not just a matter of heartbreak or manipulation. It's a profound lesson in stoicism and emotional mastery. You might be wondering, is silence really that powerful? Can it really change the way a relationship ends or transforms? And more importantly, how do I hold my peace when every instinct tells me to react, to speak, to fix? These questions sit at the core of what I'm about to reveal, a mindset shift that will reshape your understanding of Stoic relationships forever. The size of this shift is enormous because it breaks through the common traps of emotional dependency, neediness, and drama. It promises a new way, one where your silence isn't emptiness, but a force that shakes foundations, a calm that unsettles, a mystery that commands respect. Imagine discovering secrets to healing that don't require words or validation, but deep internal transformation. What if this silence could become your loudest message? The solution lies in embracing silence, not as a void, but as your shield and sword, a deliberate choice to build yourself up while letting the chaos unfold elsewhere. This is not about coldness or cruelty, it's about clarity, strength, and Stoic wisdom in action. It's about rewriting your story on your own terms and refusing to be a chapter in someone else's drama. In this journey, you will confront hard questions. Are you ready to stop chasing and start growing? Can you learn to let silence speak louder than arguments? Will you rise into the calm storm that unsettles without shouting? These questions don't just challenge you, they invite you to awaken a version of yourself that no longer shrinks for anyone or anything. If you stay with me, you'll uncover how silence becomes a powerful mirror, reflecting not weakness, but your greatest strength, a strength rooted in Stoicism and the art of Stoic relationships. So, are you prepared to see what happens when you choose to heal quietly while she panics in silence? To witness how your silence becomes the loudest voice in the room? Stay with me, because this isn't just another relationship story. This is your transformation. And the most powerful part, it's just getting started. 1. Silence is not weakness, it's strategy. Have you ever paused to truly consider the nature of silence in the face of emotional upheaval? What if the quietness that many rush to dismiss as weakness is actually a calculated, deliberate strategy rooted deeply in the wisdom of Stoicism? In the realm of Stoic relationships, silence is not the absence of strength, but the presence of it, a form of self-discipline that defies the expectation that we must always respond, explain, or fight to be heard. Why do we so often misunderstand silence as surrender, when in fact it can be the ultimate expression of inner power? When someone walks away and chooses not to engage in the noise, the pleading, the chaos, what are they really saying? Is it emptiness, indifference, or something far more profound? This is where the ancient principles of Stoicism guide us. Strength does not roar. It is measured, composed, and unshakable. To remain silent amid turmoil is to choose restraint over reaction, to embody clarity instead of confusion. and to reclaim one's power without uttering a single word. It's no coincidence that the greatest philosophers and leaders, from Marcus Aurelius to Seneca, preached the power of measured silence, not as passivity, but as intentional action. So why do so many fall into the trap of misunderstanding their own silence or the silence of others? Why does society often push us toward noise, drama, and reaction as signs of engagement and care? It is because silence disrupts the expected narrative. It challenges the pattern of emotional chaos by refusing to feed into it. It questions the need for constant validation and instead embraces self-validation, a core tenet of Stoic relationships. When she expected a breakdown, a storm, a desperate plea, your silence was a shock, not because you were weak, but because you were strong enough not to crumble. Have you ever noticed how the loudest voices in an argument often signal the most insecurity, while the quietest presence commands the most attention? In the same way, your silence becomes an unspoken declaration that you are no longer available for manipulation, that your peace is non-negotiable, and that your worth is self-evident. This shift is not easy. It requires deep introspection and mastery over one's impulses, which is exactly what Stoicism teaches us, to recognize what is within our control and what is not, and to act accordingly. In this light, silence is not the absence of action. It is the highest form of action, choosing not to engage with what diminishes your spirit or distracts you from your growth. How often do you find yourself rushing to explain your worth, to remind someone of what you bring, or to justify your choices? What if all those words were unnecessary? What if your silence spoke louder than any argument could? This is the paradox of silence in Stoic relationships. It is invisible yet powerful, quiet yet loud, passive yet active. It unsettles the other person because it refuses to play by their rules. It denies them the drama they expect and instead forces them to confront the absence of control they once held over you. What happens when she realizes that your silence is not absence, but evolution? When she begins to panic because the version of you she thought she understood no longer exists? This is the essence of the transformation silence brings. It dismantles old narratives and rewrites the script where you are no longer the one begging to be seen, but the one standing firm in your own light. This is not just emotional revenge, it is a Stoic rebirth, a reclaiming of self that aligns with the highest ideals of Stoicism. It is the wisdom to know when to speak and when to hold your peace, the courage to trust in your own process, and the humility to accept that growth often happens in quiet solitude. Have you considered that every time you choose silence in the face of emotional turmoil, you are practicing a profound form of resilience? That every unanswered call, every ignored text, every absence of reaction is a stone laid in the foundation of your strength? This is the silent storm building within you, an unshakable fortress of peace. Silence challenges the misconception that healing requires explanation or confrontation. Healing is internal. It is the work done behind closed doors, in moments of reflection and solitude where no one else's opinions matter. In the crucible of silence, you forge new boundaries, reclaim your dignity, and cultivate a centeredness that is impervious to external chaos. Does this sound like weakness? Or is it the strongest stance one can take in a world obsessed with noise? By embracing silence, you reject the trap of reactive suffering and instead embrace active growth. You refuse to be the echo of someone else's drama and instead become the author of your own peace. In the process, you embody the core of Stoicism, to live in agreement with nature, to act with virtue, and to remain indifferent to what lies beyond your control. How often do you let your emotions dictate your actions, only to regret them later? What would change if you adopted the Stoic discipline of responding not with emotion but with measured silence? How does this reshape your Stoic relationships? Not by pushing or pulling, but by allowing space for true transformation. This silence does not erase your presence. It amplifies it. It becomes a mirror reflecting your self-worth and a challenge to her assumptions. When she panics in silence, it is because your absence disrupts her narrative, forcing her to reckon with the truth she ignored, that you were never hers to control. Are you prepared to hold this silence not as a void, but as a loud testament to your healing? To let your peace speak volumes where words once failed. This is not easy in a culture that values constant connection and immediate responses, but it is necessary if you want to rise above emotional turbulence. Silence is your sanctuary and your strategy. It is the difference between breaking and becoming unbreakable. So ask yourself, when faced with chaos, will you rush to react, or will you embody the Stoic strength to remain silent and centered? What would it feel like to watch her panic quietly while you build something lasting within yourself? This is the power of silence in Stoicism and Stoic relationships. It frees you from the endless cycle of reaction and anchors you in your own truth. Are you ready to claim that power? 2. The mystery of your absence sparks panic. Have you ever observed how absence can speak louder than presence? How the mere void left behind by someone's silence stirs confusion, anxiety, and relentless questions in the mind of another? This is where your silence transforms into a powerful enigma, a puzzle she desperately tries to solve but cannot. It is in this mystery that the panic begins to build, not because she has moved on, but because she can no longer control or predict the narrative she once held so tightly. Why is it that people fear the unknown more than confrontation? What is it about uncertainty that ignites a storm of obsessive thoughts and restless nights? In Stoic relationships, this absence is a deliberate space you create, not out of cruelty, but as a protective boundary and a catalyst for transformation. When you cease to be a predictable presence, when you withdraw from the usual roles and scripts, you unsettle the very foundation upon which the other person relied. She expected the familiar patterns, the chasing, the explaining, the emotional availability, and instead she is met with silence, an unreadable calm that refuses to engage. What does this do to her psyche? It fractures it. It forces her to confront her own reflection in the quiet mirror of your absence. Does she see strength or weakness, confidence or insecurity? The truth is, the silence you maintain forces her into a space of introspection that she was never prepared to enter. How many times have you seen someone scramble to decode messages, reread texts, or obsess over the smallest details when communication stops? This is not merely a coincidence. It is the psychological pull of mystery and loss combined. The unanswered questions become loud echoes in her mind, louder than any confrontation ever could be. What did your silence mean? Was it anger, indifference, or something else, she wonders? But the most terrifying realization for her is that your silence is not absence, but evolution. An evolution that she no longer has access to, that she cannot influence or rewrite. This is where Stoicism teaches us to value what is within our control and to accept what is not. Your silence removes the illusion of control she once possessed, shattering the dynamic where she pulled and you chased. Have you noticed how in relationships this tug-of-war often defines the power balance? When you refuse to engage in this game, when you step back and hold your peace, you break the cycle and force a reckoning. What happens next is not always visible on the surface, but the mental turmoil it causes is undeniable. The ticking clock in an empty room, initially a faint sound, becomes an unbearable reminder of what once was and what now is lost. How often do we underestimate the power of absence because we confuse it with neglect? But absence, especially in the hands of someone healing through Stoicism is a profound statement. It says, "I am enough without you. I do not need to prove my worth." How does this contrast with the loud declarations and desperate pleas so common in failing relationships? It flips the entire script. Your silence becomes a sanctuary of peace, a fortress built on self-worth and an unbreakable barrier against chaos. When she panics, it is because she realizes the version of you she thought she could manipulate no longer exists. What does it feel like to be so unreadable that your absence becomes a mystery she cannot solve? This is where your quiet strength unsettles her deepest assumptions. She looks for the version of you that explained too much, forgave too quickly, and loved too deeply without reciprocity. But that version is gone, replaced by someone who has found power in stillness and wisdom in restraint. In Stoic relationships, this transformation is not accidental, but intentional. It is the fruit of embracing silence as a tool for self-preservation and growth. Have you asked yourself, what part of me am I reclaiming when I choose silence over reaction? The answer lies in owning your narrative and refusing to be drawn back into patterns that no longer serve your well-being. This silence is not a void, but a canvas on which you paint your future, calm, strong, and unshakable. What does she see when she tries to reach you but finds a closed door, a locked gate, a shadow where light once was? She sees loss, not just of you, but of control and certainty. And this uncertainty breeds panic. This panic is quiet, but relentless, manifesting in deleted messages, late-night scrolling, and overanalyzing moments that once seemed insignificant. Can you imagine how her mind races as she attempts to find a foothold in a relationship that now feels like a puzzle missing essential pieces? This is the power of your silence. It confounds and unsettles because it refuses to answer the questions she once took for granted. You no longer feed her ego or offer the crumbs of attention she expected. Instead, you embody the stoicism that teaches us to value our peace above all else. What would happen if you fully embraced this silence as a sacred space for your growth? How would your stoic relationships evolve if you prioritized your internal calm over external validation? This is the invitation that silence extends to you, to become rare, unreadable, and untouchable, not as a punishment, but as a form of protection and rebirth. Have you ever thought about the analogy of an abandoned house, once warm and familiar, now locked and quiet? She may try to peek through the cracks, searching for signs that you remain the same, but the truth is you have transformed. You are no longer the person she thought she knew, and that realization is what fuels her panic. How do you feel knowing that your silence has become a mirror, reflecting not just your absence, but your new strength? When she compares everyone new to you and finds none can match your depth, presence, or quiet confidence, what does that say about the path you are on? You are no longer chasing validation or attention. You are building something solid from within. What if this silence, this mystery, was the loudest declaration of your worth? The world may never hear your words, but they feel your absence, and it resonates louder than any argument ever could. This is the power of silence in Stoicism. It elevates you beyond the noise and the chaos, placing you in a realm where your peace is the ultimate prize. So when you feel the urge to explain, to justify, or to engage, pause and ask yourself, am I reclaiming my power through reaction, or am I embodying strength through silence? The latter is the path of the wise, the stoic, and the truly free. Your silence is not a sign of defeat, but a testament to your growth and your refusal to be dragged back into patterns that diminish your soul. What does it mean for your future relationships if you hold this truth, if you allow silence to be your strategy rather than your surrender? The answer lies in becoming the calm that unsettles the storm, the mystery that commands respect, and the force that no longer requires explanation. You are no longer the predictable presence she controlled. You are the rare, unreadable force she cannot grasp. And that, more than anything, is what will haunt her. So if this perspective resonates with you, if you recognize the power of silence in your own journey, I invite you to like this video, comment number 1 to let me know you're with me on this path, and subscribe for more lessons on Stoicism and Stoic relationships. Together we will build strength in silence and rise above the chaos. 3. Healing quietly while she breaks inside. Have you ever truly reflected on the paradox where healing and pain coexist on opposite sides of the same timeline? How is it that while you are quietly stitching yourself back together, finding strength in solitude and reclaiming your breath, she is unraveling in silence, broken not by the absence of noise, but by the absence of control? This is the quiet struggle few see, the internal battlefield where your calm becomes the backdrop for her restless storm. In the practice of Stoicism, this contrast holds profound meaning. Your healing is a deliberate act of self-mastery, a cultivation of peace that arises not from external validation, but from inner resilience. Have you noticed how often the one who leaves expects the other to break apart, to crumble under the weight of absence, but instead witnesses something far more powerful, a breakthrough, a rise? This is the moment where your silence, far from being cold or indifferent, becomes a force of transformation. What does it mean to heal quietly? It means choosing to rebuild without the need to announce every step, to grow without seeking approval, to find solace in the stillness where your soul can breathe free. How often do we mistake visible suffering as the only sign of pain, overlooking the profound strength it takes to heal in silence? Your quiet healing is the ultimate defiance of chaos, the stoic embodiment of endurance and growth. While she walks through haunted corridors of regret and pride, replaying memories like echoes in an empty hallway, you are building a new foundation, stronger, steadier, and rooted in clarity. Can you see the difference between reacting and responding? Between seeking closure from another and finding it within yourself? This is where Stoicism teaches us the highest wisdom, that peace cannot be granted by others, but must be cultivated from within. What if your healing was less about waiting for her to realize what she lost, and more about your own awakening? How would this shift your perspective on Stoic relationships? Would you still chase validation, or would you stand firm in your own light? The quiet moments of healing are often unseen, yet they are where true power gathers. How many nights have you spent in silent reflection, wrestling with your emotions yet refusing to be consumed by them? This is the crucible of transformation, the inner sanctuary where you rebuild your worth without the noise of external chaos. While she breaks inside, haunted by what she gave up and what she cannot reclaim, you are becoming whole. How do you reconcile this? How do you hold peace when the other's silence screams inside their mind? This is the tension at the heart of Stoic relationships, one person rising through stillness while the other falls into the abyss of regret. Have you considered that your silence is not an absence of feeling but the presence of strength? That your peace is louder than her chaos because it comes from mastery over self rather than reaction to others. When she smiles in public but cannot mask the cracks beneath, you embody the very essence of Stoicism, not indifference, but invincible calm. How do you maintain this balance? By understanding that healing is not a destination, but a journey, a continuous practice of choosing growth over pain, clarity over confusion, and peace over turmoil. Have you ever thought about what it means to be under construction emotionally, to embrace the unfinished nature of your growth, to accept that every day you may feel fragile, yet still choose to rise? This is the paradox of healing in silence. It's a quiet rebellion against the chaos she left behind, a testament to your resilience that cannot be undone by absence or regret. When she expected you to break, you became unbreakable. How does that realization feel? Empowering? Liberating? Or does it carry a weight of sorrow for what could have been? This is the complexity of Stoicism, holding space for pain without being defined by it. When she finally sees that you have found peace without her, that you breathe easier in her absence, it shakes her world because it challenges the illusion that she was your peace. What does this reveal about the nature of true peace? That it is not a person, place, or thing, but a state of being rooted in self-acceptance and wisdom. Can you embrace this truth fully? To know that your healing is yours alone, unshackled from the need for external validation. This is the essence of Stoic relationships. Relationships built not on dependency, but on mutual growth and respect. As you build peace within, she struggles with the rubble of pride and denial. Does she realize that freedom without clarity is merely punishment? That regret, no matter how silent, is a heavy burden. And while she remains trapped in cycles of guilt and what-ifs, you walk forward, grounded in your breath, your boundaries, and your vision. How many times have you felt tempted to look back, to respond, to re-engage, only to remember that every step toward peace requires one less reaction? This is the discipline of Stoicism, to focus on what you can control, to let go of what you cannot, and to grow steadily in between. Have you asked yourself, am I healing for myself, or am I still healing to prove something to her? The answer to this question marks the turning point between reactive suffering and stoic growth. Your healing is not a performance or a tool for revenge. It is a sacred process of becoming whole. How often do we forget that the deepest wounds require the greatest patience, that healing is not a race, but a slow unfolding of strength? When she cannot knock on the door you have locked with boundaries, when she realizes that the person she once knew is no longer accessible, panic sets in. But your calm remains unshaken. This is your victory, the ability to create peace in the midst of emotional storm. What lessons does this teach us about the nature of attachment and loss? That attachment to what no longer serves us only prolongs suffering, and that true freedom arises when we stop clinging and start growing. In this silence, you become the closure she never gave you. You embody the Stoic ideal of self-reliance and dignity, refusing to be pulled back into old patterns. Have you noticed how this shift changes your relationship to yourself and others? How boundaries become less about defense and more about self-respect? This is the evolution of Stoic relationships, from dependency to empowerment, from chaos to calm. Can you hold this truth even when the world expects you to react, to chase, or to prove your worth? That is the challenge and the triumph of living stoically in relationships. Your peace is louder than her chaos because it is built on foundation, not reaction, on wisdom, not impulse. As you continue to heal quietly, you become a beacon of strength and clarity, proof that true power lies not in noise, but in stillness. How often do you remind yourself that healing is a process, not an event? That every day you choose peace over pain, growth over grief. You are living the essence of Stoicism. This is your path forward, the path of steady, silent transformation that no external drama can undo. Can you commit to this journey, knowing that it will require patience, courage, and relentless self-love? Your healing is a testament to your strength and a challenge to the chaos she left behind. As you build from within, she is left to face the echoes of what was lost. This is not a story of defeat, but of victory, of rising through the quiet storm, to become unshakable. In the end, the question remains, will you choose to be defined by reaction or by resilience, by chaos or by calm? The answer lies in the silence you keep and the peace you build. This is the power of healing quietly, the essence of Stoic relationships and the legacy of Stoicism itself. 4. Becoming the rare diamond she took for granted. Have you ever truly understood the weight of what it means to be a diamond forged under pressure, cut and polished through pain, endurance, and time? What does it mean to become rare in a world that often values the easy, the replaceable, and the fleeting? When she once held you whole and radiant in her hands, did she see the true brilliance beneath your surface, or did she mistake your shine for something ordinary? How often do we find that those who fail to recognize our worth are blinded by their own distractions and desires for convenience? This is the profound tragedy many face in Stoic relationships. The one who embodies depth, resilience, and quiet power is often taken for granted until they choose silence and absence as their response. What happens then? She begins digging through gravel, searching desperately for a glimmer of what she discarded, only to find rough edges, dull stones, and shallow reflections that pale in comparison to the diamond she once held. Can you imagine the sting of such a realization? Not because you have diminished, but because she failed to appreciate the treasure she possessed. This is the paradox of Stoicism. The more you embrace your true self and refine your inner strength, the less accessible you become to those who only value surface-level connections. Have you asked yourself, what am I becoming as I endure pressure and pain? The answer lies in transformation, not into someone else, but into the most authentic, powerful version of yourself. Like a diamond that does not chase the light, but simply shines where it lies. You cease to beg for approval, validation, or return. How liberating is it to accept that your worth does not depend on others' recognition, but is inherent and unshakable? In the silent crucible of growth, Stoicism teaches us that true value is revealed not through noise, but through calm endurance. When she dropped you, did she realize she had let go of something priceless? Did she understand that diamonds don't plead to be picked up again? They glow quietly, regardless of circumstance. This metaphor captures the essence of becoming a Stoic warrior in relationships. You are shaped by the trials you endure, polished by the lessons you learn, and strengthened by the silence you keep. What does it feel like to become someone so rare that the world rushes past the ordinary in search of your light? How does that change the way you view yourself and the people you allow near your heart? This is where many falter. They try to dim their brilliance to be seen or accepted, but Stoicism demands something far greater, the courage to shine fully, even if it means standing alone. Have you noticed how, as you grow into your power, the replicas and placeholders she finds fall short of the depth and meaning you offer? This is not arrogance, but clarity. The clarity that comes from knowing your own worth and refusing to settle for less. How often do we mistake presence for connection, noise for substance, and attention for love? The diamond knows these illusions well and chooses to shine undeterred. When she chases after echoes, comparing them to the original light she let go, what does that say about her understanding of value? She is searching for what was constant and real, but only finds fragments and shadows. Can you hold space for the fact that her loss is not your burden, but her awakening? That your departure echoes louder than any words ever could because it carries the weight of unspoken truth. This is the Stoic way, to let go without bitterness, to grow without apology, and to shine without seeking approval. Have you ever felt the deep satisfaction that comes from knowing you are no longer shrinking for anyone? That you stand tall, unshaken by rejection or absence? This is the transformation Stoicism encourages. The transformation from being an option to becoming the lesson, from being taken for granted to being recognized as rare. How do you cultivate such strength when the world often encourages us to dim ourselves to fit in? The answer lies in discipline, self-respect, and the wisdom to know that not everyone is qualified to hold your light. What does it mean to protect your energy fiercely, to build boundaries not as walls of isolation, but as gates to your sacred space? This is the heart of Stoic relationships, cultivating connections that honor your growth and release those that diminish it. When she finally wakes to the contrast between the diamond you have become and the gravel she settles for, what emotions rise in her? Regret, confusion, longing. This is the silent power of your absence, the power to reflect back what she lost, in a way words never could. Can you accept that this power is not revenge but revelation? That your evolution is a testament to your resilience and a beacon to others who seek true strength? In this process, you become not just a survivor, but a shining example of what it means to live with integrity, grace, and unyielding self-worth. How does that align with your own journey in Stoicism and your approach to Stoic relationships? To become the diamond she dropped is to embrace the fullness of your being, forged in fire, but polished by wisdom. It is to understand that your value is not diminished by loss, but magnified by growth. Have you embraced this truth in your life? Are you ready to shine without apology and to walk forward knowing you are priceless, rare, and unbreakable? This is not a fantasy, but a reality available to anyone willing to endure, reflect, and rise. So if you feel the power of this message, if you are ready to become the diamond that no one can replace, I invite you to like this video, comment number 1 if you resonate with this transformation, and subscribe for more insights on Stoicism and Stoic relationships. Together we will rise, reflect, and shine through the silence. 5. Your silence is a storm she never saw coming. Have you ever pondered the quiet power that lies beneath the surface of silence, the storm brewing unseen until it erupts with undeniable force? How often do we mistake stillness for surrender, calm for compliance, and absence for weakness? In the practice of Stoicism, silence is never a sign of defeat. It is the gathering of strength, the calm before the inevitable surge of transformation. When she mistook your silence as surrender, she failed to grasp the profound evolution taking place within you. The storm you embody is not loud, messy, or chaotic. It is a force of nature, unshakable and unapologetic, born from the quiet work of healing, reflection, and self-mastery. What does it mean to become a storm in the aftermath of calm? It means that your peace was never fragile. It was always a precursor to power. The calm you displayed was not weakness, but strategy. A stillness that allowed you to rebuild without distraction and prepare for a breakthrough she never anticipated. Have you noticed how many expect drama, breakdowns, or loud confrontations when someone leaves, but instead you became something else entirely? You became the breakthrough, the thunder waiting to roar, the force she cannot ignore or control. This is the essence of Stoicism. Transforming adversity into strength, silence into a statement, and absence into presence. How does it feel to be that storm? To hold within you a power so fierce that it disrupts her illusions and shakes her foundation. When she thought losing you would be like losing a gentle breeze, she did not realize she was losing a whole weather system. This storm you are has layers. Beneath the quiet exterior lies a fierce energy shaped by every disappointment, every betrayal, and every moment you chose to rise rather than fall. In the realm of Stoic relationships, this transformation is a profound reminder that true power is not in noise or chaos, but in unyielding calm and unbreakable resolve. What lessons can we draw from this? That the most profound changes often happen in silence, and that the greatest storms are born from the deepest stillness. When she is left to wonder why you didn't chase, why you didn't plead or explain, The answer lies in your evolution beyond neediness and reaction. You stepped into a space where validation no longer comes from others, but from within. This is the power of Stoicism, to be grounded in virtue and self-control, regardless of external circumstances. Have you considered how this internal shift changes the entire dynamic of your relationships? When you no longer respond to chaos with chaos, but meet it with calm, the energy shifts. You become the storm she never prepared for, the presence she can't manipulate, and the truth she must confront. How does this realization affect your sense of self? Does it liberate you from the cycle of seeking approval? Or does it challenge you to hold firm in the face of uncertainty? This is the tension and the triumph of Stoic relationships, balancing vulnerability with strength, silence with power, and absence with presence. When she tries to name the change in you but finds no answer, when she watches from afar and feels the shift but cannot grasp it, you have reached a place of sacred mystery. This mystery is your sanctuary and your sword. It is the shield that protects your peace and the hammer that breaks old patterns. Have you ever reflected on the analogy of a quiet valley suddenly darkening as a storm approaches? The sky may seem peaceful, but the air shifts, the pressure drops, and the horizon darkens. This is what your energy feels like to her now, a force of nature she neither expected nor can control. How do you embody this power without losing yourself to rage or bitterness? The answer lies in Stoicism, in channeling your energy through wisdom, discipline, and virtue. Your storm is not chaos, it is order restored. It is the reckoning that follows years of being overlooked, dismissed, or taken for granted. When she relied on the version of you that forgave too easily and stayed too soft, she failed to see the strength growing beneath. Now, you are the wildfire that consumes illusions and clears the path for something new. What does it mean to be a wildfire, to burn away what no longer serves and leave fertile ground for growth? This is the metaphor of your silence turned storm, a transformation that is both destructive and regenerative. Have you ever felt misunderstood in this process, mistaken for anger or cruelty when you were simply protecting your peace? This is the challenge of Stoicism, to be firm without harshness, strong without cruelty, and powerful without domination. Your silence is your power, and your power is your peace. When she tries to make sense of your absence and finds only mystery, it is because you have stepped beyond the reach of her expectations. You are no longer the version of yourself shaped by her narrative, but the version forged in the fire of your own growth. How do you hold this truth without losing compassion for yourself and for her? This is the balance Stoicism teaches: to embrace reality as it is, without attachment to outcome or resentment. You are not the person who begged for understanding. You are the person who lives in peace, even if no one understands at all. This peace is your storm, the quiet force that unsettles without shouting, moves without force, and transforms without violence. Have you considered the freedom that comes from this? The freedom to live on your own terms, to love without dependence, and to stand unshaken by loss. This is the promise of Stoicism and the heart of Stoic relationships. The true strength comes not from control, but from surrender to what is beyond control, coupled with mastery over what lies within. When she finally comprehends what she overlooked, the depth of your heart, the strength of your spirit, the peace you have claimed, she will realize the true cost of her choices. But this realization is no longer your burden. It is her awakening. How will you carry yourself when she faces this truth? With grace, with quiet confidence, with the knowledge that you have become the storm she never saw coming? This is not a story of revenge, but of revelation. You changed not to hurt her, but to protect yourself, to survive and to grow. Your silence was not absence, it was the prelude. to power. The storm you have become is undeniable, unshakable, and unapologetic. In the echoes of your silence, she hears the truth she once ignored. The way you spoke, the way you loved, the way you stayed, now gone, leaving behind the roar of what was and the calm of what remains. This is the ultimate lesson of Stoicism and the legacy of Stoic relationships: to transform silence into strength, absence into presence, and loss into liberation. Can you embrace this storm within you? Can you hold your peace amid the chaos and rise as the force that reshapes your world? This is your moment, the moment when silence speaks louder than words, and calm becomes the storm she never anticipated. 6. Reclaiming your power and writing your own story. Have you ever stopped to consider that your greatest power lies not in the words you speak, but in the story you choose to write silently with your actions, your presence, and your growth? In the landscape of Stoic relationships, reclaiming your power means more than just standing tall after heartbreak. It means taking the pen into your own hands and authoring a narrative defined by self-respect, wisdom, and unwavering peace. How often do we give away our power by allowing others to write our story for us through their judgments, their expectations, or their absence? What would happen if you reclaimed that power fully, if you stopped waiting for validation and began living your truth unapologetically? This is the essence of Stoicism: to live according to your own virtues and principles, undeterred by external chaos or the opinions of others. When you choose silence, not as avoidance but as protection, you reclaim the narrative from the noise and confusion that once clouded it. Have you ever realized that silence can be the loudest declaration of your worth? That by refusing to engage in futile explanations or emotional bargaining, you stand firm in your dignity and self-control? This is not about coldness or distance. It is about clarity and boundaries that safeguard your soul. What does it mean to own your story word by word, step by step, without apology? It means recognizing that your past does not define your future. That every experience, every hurt, and every lesson is a chapter that contributes to your growth, not your limitation. How often do we find ourselves trapped in the stories others tell about us, struggling to prove our value or correct misconceptions? What if the only story you needed to tell was the one you lived through your character and actions? This shift from reaction to authorship is the heart of Stoic relationships and the practice of Stoicism itself. When you stop seeking closure from others and instead create it within yourself, you free your spirit from the cycle of dependency and pain. What would it feel like to walk away from the need for validation and into the freedom of self-acceptance? This is the freedom that comes from understanding what is within your control and what is not, a fundamental lesson of Stoicism. How do you cultivate this freedom daily? By focusing on your growth, setting clear boundaries, and nurturing the peace that comes from living authentically. Have you ever noticed how people who reclaim their power often inspire confusion, regret, or even panic in those who once held sway over them? This is not accidental. It is the natural response when control shifts and the dynamic changes. Your silence, your peace, and your steady growth become a mirror, reflecting what was once taken for granted. How does it feel to be that mirror? To silently show what true strength looks like? This power is not for spectacle, but for self-preservation. It is the fortress you build to protect your soul and the beacon that guides your evolution. What does it mean to use hurt not as a prison, but as fuel? To let pain ignite the fire of transformation rather than consume you in despair. This is the wisdom Stoicism imparts, the art of turning adversity into advantage, loss into liberation, and silence into strength. When she realizes that you are no longer the person who bends, pleads, or waits, but the one who stands firm, how will that change her perspective? How will that shift alter the power she once held? These questions mark the profound shift from victimhood to victory. Your story is no longer a tale of loss, but a chronicle of rising, of steady, silent evolution toward your highest self. How do you embrace this role with grace and courage? By trusting the process and embodying the principles of Stoicism, resilience, wisdom, and virtue. Have you reflected on the kind of legacy you want to leave, not just to others but to yourself, one defined by peace, integrity, and strength? This is the legacy you craft each day through your choices, your silence, and your unwavering commitment to growth. When you no longer seek to be whole through others, but instead cultivate wholeness within, you transform not only your life, but the lives of those around you. This is the power of Stoic relationships, relationships rooted in mutual respect, self-awareness, and emotional maturity. How often do we mistake intensity for intimacy, chaos for connection, or need for love? What if the truest form of love is the kind that encourages growth, honors boundaries, and fosters peace? This is the love Stoicism models, not as an external force, but as an internal state of being. When you reclaim your power and write your story with intention, you step into a new chapter where silence protects your peace and growth becomes your greatest revenge. How liberating is it to know that you do not need to explain, justify, or fight for your worth? That your presence alone is enough to command respect and inspire change. This is the promise of Stoicism, that by mastering yourself, you master the narrative and reclaim your life from the chaos of dependency. What will you choose today, to be the echo of someone else's story or the author of your own? To shrink for acceptance or to rise in your full stature? These choices define the path forward. As you move through this journey, remember that healing is not linear, growth is not always visible, and peace is often found in the quiet moments when no one is watching. Yet these moments are the most profound. They are where true transformation takes root. How do you nurture these moments daily? Through reflection, self-discipline, and the courage to stand alone if necessary. Have you considered that every step you take away from the noise is a step toward freedom? That each boundary you set is a declaration of self-love? That your silence can be both shield and sword in this battle for your soul? This is the essence of Stoic relationships and the practice of Stoicism. Your power lies not in the approval of others, but in the quiet confidence of your own worth. How will you honor this power? Will you live it fully, unapologetically, and with relentless commitment? When you do, you not only transform your own life, but become a living example for others seeking their path to peace. So, if you feel the strength of this message, if you are ready to reclaim your power and write your story anew, I invite you to like this video, comment number 1 to share your commitment, and subscribe for more transformative lessons on Stoicism and Stoics relationships. Together, we will rise, reflect, and rebuild into our highest selves, standing unshaken and whole, no matter the storms we face. In the end, the journey of healing through silence is not about punishment or proving a point. It is about reclaiming the sovereignty of your own spirit. While she panics in the quiet spaces you once filled, you rise, stronger, wiser, and unshaken. This is the paradox of Stoicism. True power often resides in stillness, and profound transformation emerges not from noise, but from the calm resilience cultivated deep within. Your silence becomes a mirror reflecting your worth back to the world, a testament to growth that no words could fully capture. As you walk forward, writing your story with intentionality and grace, remember that the most important audience is yourself. Let the past be a chapter, not your entire book. Stand firm in your peace, hold your boundaries, and trust that this path of quiet strength will lead you to your highest self. In embracing this journey, you live the very essence of Stoic relationships. Relationships grounded not in dependence, but in dignity, mutual respect, and profound self-awareness. May you find freedom in silence, courage in solitude, and power in your unwavering commitment to becoming the person you were always meant to be.